My name is John Barbour, comedian, writer, critic, actor, host, sex symbol, and humble human being. In order to substantiate a couple of these rumors that I'm spreading today, on this monitor I'm sort of going to guide you through a brief sampling of some of the work I've done.
It hasn't been easy for me, you know. The first time I was to do the Johnny Carson show, I was preempted because of a news special. The first time I was to do the Merv Griffin show, it snowed in New York, and I had to land in Boston. The second time I did the Merv Griffin show, we taped it, and I was preempted in Los Angeles because of a basketball game. The first time I was to work a club in Las Vegas, a casino burned down, first time it ever happened. I was supposed to open at Mr. Kelly's in Chicago last year, famous nightclub. A week before I was to open, that burned down. And a few years ago, I made a very good album with some good stuff on it, and the album was called It's Tough to Be White. And about a week later, Watts burned down. And sometimes I have the feeling that I inherit the bad luck and the sins of my father. You get the feeling sometimes things don't work out for you. Well, my father had very bad luck. He bought a cemetery plot and then drowned at sea. My poor father, he got to be like 55 years of age, and nothing had happened for the poor man all of his life, and he was celebrating his birthday, and he was watching a CBS special, and he was drinking beer and eating potato chips, and it was a CBS special about the abominable snowman. Now, my father had failed at everything he'd done in his life. He went in the restaurant business, the haberdashery business, everything didn't work out. Now, he was sitting watching this documentary about the abominable snowman, and all of a sudden he began to think, do you know, if I could catch that thing, I could go down in history as another Darwin for maybe catching the missing link. And then if I caught it, I could become a millionaire like Barnum because I could charge admission for it. So the more he thought about this, the more obsessed he became with the idea of catching the abominable snowman. Then one day, he left my mother, left the children, cashed in his savings, left the job, took his savings account, insurance, everything. And he went over to India. And when he got there, he hired 10 of the toughest Indian Sherpa guides, and they ascended the Himalayas. Well, they were 20,000 feet, freezing cold, 30 below zero. The first week, the 10 Sherpa guides froze to death. My father was just about to give up and collapse when he spotted the tracks of the abominable snowman. And these images were conjured up in his mind. He got these pictures, and the adrenaline started pumping, and he went out after it, and he caught the abominable snowman, and he took it down the mountain, and it melted. And it's very depressing today to see my father sitting in the basement staring at a bucket of hairy ice water.
In case you're wondering, that bucket of hairy ice water was revived and is now in charge of payroll here at Metro Media. As for me, somebody saw me as a stand-up comedian and suggested I sit down and do a news information show. The book that I'm holding, The Sensuous Woman, has been on the bestseller lists for 14 weeks, on all the bestseller lists. Some people have called it sophomoric, some people have called it sensational, some have called it instructive, and some have called it funny. And I read it last night, and I went through it in about 17 minutes. It was very easy to read, and the authoress is with us. Her name is Joan Garrity. Joan, thank you so much for coming by in. I must say, when I first looked at the frontispiece to the book, and you said you were describing yourself as not being too attractive and maybe kind of thick-hipped and kind of heavy legs, I expected to see somebody who was not very attractive, but after reading your book, you're beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
How did you come to write the book?
Well, it was an accident. Actually, I was asked to.
By whom?
By Lyle Stewart, the publisher. And it was just an odd chain of circumstances, because at first I said no. And then I thought, well, I do have something to say. The first kind of book he wanted me to write, I couldn't write. And I thought, doggone it, I've got something I've wanted to say for a long time, a lot of things.
Why would Lyle Stewart come to you?
Well, he and his wife, Mary Louise, had known me for quite a while, and I had been very candid with people about the fact that I'd been labeled frigid, and through no help from anyone else, I'd figured out how to change this pattern. And like I'd been to the doctors, and I'd read, and I'd done all of these things, and gee, there wasn't anything that helped me. And so they said, you know, if you can put all this stuff that you've been talking about to other girls and women and put it in some kind of book and people will be able to understand it, you know, make it readable, then we've got a book. And I said, well, all right, I'll try. And that's really how it all was launched.
Well,
it's an accident. In other words, I never would have sat down and, I suppose, written a manuscript and then submitted it to publishers.
It was an accident, perhaps, that somebody asked you to write the book. But do you think it's an accident that it became a bestseller because you're very obviously and blatantly dealing with how to be a better sexual partner? Mm-hmm. So you weren't surprised in any way because it became a bestseller?
I knew it would go one of two ways. You know, I could say, oh, I just didn't think anything like this would ever happen. But I've been in the book business for 5 years, and I knew that it was going to sell like 10 copies, or it was going to sell what it is now. It's a bit about the 200,000 mark, that there'd be no in between, because a book like this is timely. It hits its time or it doesn't, like Helen Gurley Brown's Sex and the Single Girl. Mm-hmm. The year it came out, that was the year for that book.
Well, you know, when I got the book, I went to two of the secretaries who work in the lot, and I had asked them if they'd heard about it. Not only had they heard about the book, but they read it. Now, they were very bright girls, and I was looking for them to be offended by what they read. Both of them found it not only immensely interesting, but both of them said that they were sorry that they hadn't written the book. And it's intriguing from a man's point of view to get mentally inside a woman's head when it comes to the aspects of sex. Do you think that women are as sexual as men?
Oh, yes, John, of course we are. It's just that we've had this odd history where they've only discovered in recent years that we are. And then we've had the double problem that now everyone tells us that we're marvelously sexually, you know, creatures, but no one has been able to tell us how to become this, you know, this is our nature, but how to become it. We've just had so many centuries of being brainwashed.
And that's what you put in the book?
Yeah, and I just sort of cut through all of that and was trying to be extremely practical.
Well, because the book
because no one else was. I don't know why. You know, all of our doctors should have written this book, maybe made it a little classier, you know, and more doctorate, because I just wrote it simply. But why, if all of these things that I put in the book are so all right to do, aren't they all right to describe?
Well, because the book is so sensitive, I don't want to lead you in any area that might be a little bit distasteful, so I will let you do that. What?
Thank you.
What were
We're getting up for that.
What were some of the things that you described in the book?
Yeah, well, actually, the book is really in two sections. And the first section is why women are buying the book, and the second section is why men buy the book. The first section is learning how to have orgasms, because this is what American women are so hung up on. You know, it's so hard for a man to understand that a woman feels so crippled inside when she's got this label of, you know, not being able to, you know, produce exactly what she wants to. It's a terrible thing. You do really, you know, a lot of women have an awful lot of headaches and are irritable and clean the house too hard and things like that just because they're not, you know, becoming full women. And it's a rotten thing to have happen to you in your life. So I've been trying to change that pattern because I don't think it's that difficult. It really is just a matter of knowledge. And I just think, well, if, you know, again, this knowledge should be available. Now, again, John, I don't think this book is for 100% of the American women. Nothing is. You know, I'm not saying, you know, I've come up with the only thing that works. At last there's something, and this is the only thing. I've got guidelines, that's all.
I have one quick question before
Yes.
you leave. Do you think man is naturally polygamous?
Yes.
Why?
I'm not happy about it.
Why?
I mean, I don't like it at all. Well, I can't say. Why are men men? It seems to be born into them. Now, I'm curious. I'm wondering if maybe women are too, but it is, again, we've been so brainwashed since time began because man has done this, whether we'll eventually turn out to be polygamous too. At the moment, I don't feel that most women are by
Well,
nature.
if you say the greatest fulfillment comes between two partners who love one another, you can't love a multitude of people in that spiritual sense,
No,
can
but
you?
I noticed that man has an amazing way of being, you know, can be very much in love, and yet every time he walks down the street, his eye is wandering.
Have you ever been
He may never do anything about it, John, but it's something about men. They just, you know, where a woman might not even be aware there's another man on the street, a man cannot walk down the street without being aware of every female in a miniskirt.
Have you ever been married, Joan?
No, I'm engaged to be married now.
Are you happy?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Would you do me a favor and stick around and autograph
I'd
the
love
4
to.
copies of the book that I have in my office? When Joan Garrity autographed my book, she wrote, Dear John, I enjoy being with you more than anyone. P.S. I also enjoyed being on your show.
Remember that the Supreme Court made the decision, even saying you don't even have to belong to a church as long as you're really sincere and do not believe in war. You can get a full deal.
Then how come Muhammad Ali is having such difficulty?
Well, he just hasn't got the universal life ministry.
Hello, John.
Wait a
John.
minute. Excuse me, sir. Would you wish to become a minister?
Yes, to be very honest with you, I've got to go down this morning at 11:30. If he can, if he can do it for me now, I'll go and I'll send him a check.
Here's the certificate. Ordain him.
I promise, I'll send him a money order. All he got to do it for me now. I got to be down there this morning.
Brother Power invested in me by the state of California in the Universal Life Church. I ordain you a minister. If you'll come down to the Embassy Auditorium this morning at 10 o'clock, you can pick up the papers.
What time I got to be down there? Where's the Embassy Auditorium?
He said 10 o'clock. Where is it that he has to be?
At the Embassy Auditorium at the office, and I'll be there.
Well, where's the Embassy Auditorium, Doctor?
And I'll go with you.
Where's the Embassy Auditorium?
It's at 8-something. Let me get it here. I'll tell you here.
Is that your Vatican?
I can look
Yeah, no, that's
But look, will you walk over with me to the draft board?
Well, he wants to know if you'll walk with him to the draft board. Will you walk with him to the draft board?
Here it is.
847 South Grand Street, 10 o'clock this morning.
I'll be there.
Zap, you're 4D.
All right, I'll be there. Listen, Doctor, just one other thing, Doctor, please. How much money I got to bring in?
Not anything.
Nothing at all?
Nothing.
See you at 10 o'clock, and God bless you.
I also have an ad in the Los Angeles Times. Get the Los Angeles Times yesterday's paper.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. This is naturally a big thrill for me to be able to host a show like this, a talk show. It's a very lucky break because you really can never tell what something like this show might lead to. Because I mean, if I do a good job, then maybe I'll get to do the 6:25 weather report. But, it's a thrill to think that this show goes all the way to Anaheim. I got to tell you, I don't drink, but in anticipation of taking over a show like this for a week, a friend of mine and a couple of friends and their family invited me out to their house last night for a barbecue and a couple of drinks, to kind of toast my taking over the show. And we toasted a drink for each day that we would be on the show, Monday through Friday. And then we toasted each day that Ed Sullivan's been on the air. And so I got home. Now, I'm not really used to drinking, and I didn't sleep too well. And all night my stomach was kind of churning. I woke up, and I really had a tight stomach. My throat was constricted and tight, and my eyeballs were tight and kind of closed. My head felt like about this, and I got out of bed, and I was staggering around looking for the aspirin. And by mistake, I took 2 Salvo tablets. And about an hour later, I had this craving to eat my laundry. Once again, somebody saw me doing a stand-up spot and suggested I get involved with the news, which I did.
But what has especially intrigued critic John is that incident yesterday where an airliner lost a part of one of its engines as it was flying over West L.A. John was, of course, relieved that there were no injuries, as the rest of us, but that incident, in a strange way that's peculiar to Mr. Barbour, got him thinking about the situation in a somewhat offbeat manner. But here, let's let critic John tell you all about that himself. John?
I've always been fearful that something like this was going to happen. I live under the flight path into Burbank Airport, and sometimes the planes would come in so low I could hear the roar of the pilots praying. And when they used to get that low, I often wondered what would happen if parts of it fell through my roof. Well, our landlord would probably raise the rent, and the county assessor would increase our property taxes for making improvements in the bathroom. But I used to wonder how I would personally react. Would I panic? Well, I know now what I would do if I thought the sky was falling on me. I'd become Chicken Little. So knowing how I would behave, on one side of the bed, I've installed an insurance vending machine. And on the other side, I keep an extra pair of clean underwear. When I was a youngster, my mother told me to put on clean underwear every day in case I was in an accident. She used to say to me, "You don't want people to think your mother doesn't worry about you by not giving you clean underwear every day. Well, now, when those planes fly low, I have nightmares about part of a plane flying into my house and the doctors and the insurance agents fighting over who'll pull the debris off me, and then they're telling me they want to check where it hurts, and me saying something about my underwear. Well, I'm not afraid of flying around Los Angeles. I'm afraid of sleeping around Los Angeles. It's the only city where you can get mugged by a turban. But it's gotten so bad with me, not only do I worry about myself, I wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat, wondering what the pilot would say to the passengers. How would he inform them that a rear engine was missing, and do it calmly without causing hysteria? Ladies and gentlemen, you know how you sometimes lose your luggage? Folks, you know how Ralph Nader has cars recalled for defective parts? Well, you'll be pleased to know this plane doesn't have any. Not anymore. Have you ever seen that commercial about the proud bird with the golden tail? Well, I don't know how to tell you this. We're still proud of the wings and the body, but shame on the tail. Now, folks, if you turn around, we'd like to show you the newest feature on this DC-10. It's so new, it's only 2 minutes old. It's designed so you can see where you've been. Originally, we were going to install a rear view mirror, but that fell off too. Now, this new feature, folks, in the vernacular of pilots and stewardesses, is known as a hole. Well, look at it this way, folks. Isn't it a comfort to know you're on a plane that's not being hijacked? Now the tide, though, is beginning to change. Because I do this kind of material 3 times a week here in Los Angeles, somebody has now suggested that I become a stand-up comedian.
You know, a lot of people think just because you're on television, you got a lot of money or you make a lot of money, but that's not true. I've been doing television and clubs now for 4 or 5 years since I've been in the business, and I have never made any money, and I've only allowed myself one luxury in life. I drive America's most expensive automobile. I have an $18,000 1963 Lemon. That's how much I put into it. I've had it 2 months. My mechanics had it 2 years. You know, I used to hear all the time when I was a kid that American cars were built in time to fall apart, but that's not true. There's no set time. They can go at any minute. I haven't seen the USA in my car, but I've seen every mechanic in it. Hey, you know where St. Louis is? Right next to Pete's Body Shop. Would you believe that already I'm using 2 quarts of oil a day just to keep the doors from squeaking? The paint's the original color, aluminum. The only thing that works in my car is the lighter. It gives off a constant flame. It's an automatic choke. You get in, you automatically choke. I remember when I was driving to Los Angeles once from Pete's Body Shop. No, I remember when I was driving out here once, I stopped for a hitchhiker. He wanted out. I wouldn't say the car smokes a lot, but the other day I pulled into a gas station, which is unusual because ordinarily I'm being pushed. And I said to the attendant, fill her up. He says, I'm sorry, we're out of wood.
Here is a big one for you and a little one for me.
Oh,
and you know,
wow.
it develops around your arms, you see? Now you press it on and then you pull it up. Oops. Up!
Watch the microphone! Are you sitting on the pulpit? He's sitting on the pulpit. Near. The whole set's coming apart.
See what that where has to go?
Destroy.
Hey, it's Donald O'Connor!
A week later, Donald O'Connor had to move over and make way for me and my show. One critic who used to watch that show pretty regularly for the 6 weeks that it was on, and who also watched me when I was on the Merv Griffin show and the Dean Martin show fairly regularly as a comedian, said, and I quote, John Barbour is one of the very few, or probably the only comedian on television today who evokes that kind of warm, instantaneous laughter from an audience, always using new and fresh material. That critic also went on to say that John Barbour will become one of America's most popular television personalities within 6 months. That critic said that 3 years ago. Now, while I may not have necessarily gotten the break that I think I would like to have as a television personality, I certainly got more than my share of a break and certainly more of my share of luck as a father. His being on the show has nothing to do with the fact that I happen to be his father. He just is the greatest 2-year-old golfer in the world. Christopher, how old are you? 2. That's a good boy. Okay. What? 19. Okay, sweetheart, hit the ball. Is that fantastic? Slow motion, sweetheart. That a boy. Okay, let me see you putt, sweetheart. You don't want to putt? Okay, what I'm going to let you do is, I have the ball. You want the other ball? There it is. Blow the audience a kiss, sweetheart. Welcome to AM. Your question to Jim, please.
Well, I just wanted to say hi, and I think he's a very good actor.
Well, he appreciates that, I'm sure.
That's very kind.
And I think you are a doll. I just love you.
Are you talking
talking to you.
Are you talking to Jim, ma'am?
Oh, the one that answers, the one that said hello, you're on AM. You are really good. I think you're a doll.
I mean, that's fantastic to be sitting here with Jim Garner.
There you go.
That's terrific. You want to ask me some questions, Jim?
No, you're...
See, now, if I had just told you that, you would have never believed that. Thanks very much for your time.